3, 2, 1, and welcome back to Chasing the Racing, episode 19. And I'm joined by the lovely Dom the Bomb
You
Herbertson.
almost forgot who this was, didn't you?
Well, not likely.
I'm telling you, I thought you were about to sack us all off there. You're thinking, one day you'll go and I've eventually killed Dominic Herbertson. He's no longer coming back, mind. There you are.
We've got a slightly new setup here at the podcast. We've invested in a Zoom H4N Pro. So we've got like a slight. Hopefully the audio will be coming through a little bit better because we've invested a little bit in the audio quality.
It looks proper sketchy. I'm not being funny, but if you went through an airport with that, Chrissy, you'd be asked to lay on the ground, face down with your hands behind your back. And I'm not talking about the big market in town.
So we've got a good episode to you. We've just pre-recorded a conversation on Skype, so we'll add that in, and we've got a few bits and pieces to get through. Had a really strong week on the podcast. We actually had our best day for downloads after the last podcast, Dom. We had over 400 downloads in a single 24-hour period, which has been our PB so far. So
PB, look at this. The track terminologies are coming out within the podcast world here. It is chasing the racing after all.
And I must say thanks to everyone sort of spreading the word on whether it's Twitter, Facebook, Instagram, whatever it is. We really appreciate all the positive feedback and the retweets and whatever. So yeah, really appreciate that. But so for today's episode, like I say, we've got a quick intro and then we've got a long interview, which I'm sure you'll really enjoy. He was a fantastic guest.
He's a nutter. He's brilliant.
I've been looking forward to getting him on the podcast for a while. He's got an amazing story to tell. He's really been the highest to highs and the lowest to lows.
Obviously, before you get going into that, though, we never actually asked the question at the end. He's actually got a book out, this man. You might as well introduce him, Chrissy, your guest.
Well, first of all, we've got a sponsor for the episode, which we need to get in first.
Oh, yes. Yeah, let's get them knackers in. They're a great bunch of lads.
That's it. So for this episode, our sponsor is BR8 Racing. They're on Twitter and Instagram, so at
the future, Chrissy.
BR8 Racing. And the set of 6 lads racing in the ever more popular British mini bike series. They ride together, laugh together, and generally take the piss out of each other.
Touch each other up a bit.
They're very similar to the MotoGP paddock. We sleep in pig trailers, eat pie and chips, wear slightly tight leathers, and all of our dads tell us we are shite. We're hoping to sign the Chasing the Racing boys up for a round or two so we can lead them astray as if Dom needs it. Always welcome to ride.
That's a bit singled out here, lad. I tell you what, they can ram their sponsorship up their arse on this one.
Always welcome to ride and share a beer or two. Keep up the mega work, a breath of fresh air rather than listening to Shaky Bird talk about himself. Give us a follow on Instagram and Twitter under the BR8 Racing. So yeah, really appreciate the sponsorship. And on the subject of the mini bikes, have you ever given that a shot, Dom?
Oh, honestly, that's how they got in touch. They just put a tweet out there, even on the Insta boob, and just went, all right, Chrissy, come on, you and Dom come along and have a bit of crack. And to be fair, I actually met him at the weekend. Obviously, we're going to talk about a little bit about our weeks, but I saw them down at the Sidecar Revival down at Cadwell Park, and the big lad, I think he was blocking out the sun most of the day, is humongous. So how that he fits on a bloody pit bike is beyond me. And he brought the young'un down, and absolutely salt of the earth people. But I think in the future, Chrissy, we're really going to have to get them on as a guest, because obviously pit bike racing, it does sound cheap, and it is cheap, but it is a great form of racing. But people are taking it more and more and more serious. One of our guests that we had on there, Richard Cooper, he's really into it, and it is polishing up.
He's the right size for it, isn't he?
He's the perfect size for it. He's absolutely small man. But it's obviously a discipline that more and more riders are getting into.
Using for training and stuff.
Well, that's it. At the end of the day, you are chucking around a bike, but, you can... And I was having a quick chat with the lads there, and they were saying it's absolutely buttons, and it's a great way to get into it, and more young'uns are getting into it, and it's something I've got my eye on. Anyway, I'm very tempted to spend my money. I just need to cut a few more trees down, mate.
Well, we've actually got a few decent tracks around here, obviously being the northeast of England. We've got, I'm not sure if they're still allowed far. The bikes at Wardenlaw, I think that's just go-kart tracks. But
Wardenlaw.
Teesside, which isn't too far, that's a fantastic track. And it's
Are you a fan, are you?
Oh, you can practice. I think they do like a Tuesday evening. So in the summer months, you can get down there straight after work and have the full evening there until
In the summer months, aye.
So I meant we'll have to maybe invest and get ourselves down to a meeting and meet the lads.
I was about to say, are you up for coming then? Because I was signed up. They saw me as a sucker and they saw me coming, lad. They saw me coming.
Down, aye. And on the topic of this week, obviously you mentioned being at Cadwell Park, first time riding a two-stroke. How was it?
Right. It was absolutely amazing. I've become a man this weekend. I really have. And, everyone was like setting me up for a bit of a fall, really. When someone says it's really, 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 really good, you're thinking, this better live up to it. And it surely was. Well, the best way to describe it is it would have been the exact same as hopping on a Victoria's Secret model. The most amazing thing in the world, but it never lasted long. I only had 20 minutes, and most of that was getting down at the track. Honestly, it was just, that's the best way to describe it. It was just, that 250 RS bike was just...
How was your first ever power band?
Wait, funny enough, it would have been exactly the same as hopping on the Victoria's Secret model. It would have just been boom, that was it. And I went out on Stone Cold tyres, but you'll never guess who my teammate was.
Who was that?
Obviously, this huge opportunity came by a lovely man called John Chapman, who has like an array of bikes. And I mean, if you want to meet someone who is obsessed and passionate about the sport, it's John Chapman.
Mm-hmm.
So anyway, I met him on the boat home and he says, "Oh, have you never ridden a two-stroke?" I goes, "Oh, no." He says, "Oh, get yourself down at this sidecar revival." And sure enough, I'm not shy of turning down a challenge or two. So anyway, I tipped up there and he goes, "Oh, guess who your teammate is?" And I'm going, "Who the hell? What do you mean teammate? It's a bloody parade, And he goes, I'm thinking, who the hell could it be? None other than Jake Dixon.
Yeah.
Swear me life, Jake Dixon. So there's me. I turned up. He goes, "Dom, which one do you want to ride?" I said, "Well, go on. I'll have a go on the Dave O. Johnson one. That's the one that Dave O. Johnson, Dan Neen, and Ivan Linton." Now, Ivan Linton's got a fantastic photo of it because he came out the end of Sulby. And I swear me life, there's Ivan Linton, flat chat, someone's got a photo of it, a massive cock jumps out in the middle of the road.
So you with the
massive
with the peacock.
That's it. Me with the peacock and him with the big cockerel coming over the road. And it's a fantastic photo because Ivan's still totally tucked in. And it's literally mid-flight on the skip. Not in the flight, on the skip, going like that, just having a jot across the road. And there's Ivan Linton doing 150 plus on this 250. And it was just, so anyway, I hired in this bike and went, I'm going to have a go on that. And so Jake Dixon turns up and going, right, no bother. So he hops on this bike, and then Eddie Roberts, who's his father-in-law, obviously he's anyway, he's part of the Pirelli team. Mm-hmm. So anyway, they turn up, tyre warmers on stands, double checking this. And I'm thinking, oh, for fuck's sake, here we go. I'm going to get totally outclassed again here. So warmed them up, off we went. And there, I just remember seeing Dixon nearly roof it. Mm-hmm. There's this 30 grand 250 RS bike and Dixon comes over the mountain. It's that light and he goes, nip. Just nearly roofs it over the mountain. But he had a bigger smile as me. And he loved it and so did I.
I actually used to race two-stroke 125s with Jake at Cadwell Park.
Oh, so the little swines had two-stroke experience then. Oh, there we go then.
I think he still holds the Super Teen lap record actually from, I think I had it that weekend and then he broke it in the last race. And but yeah, we had some right good battles there. He's a hell of a rider, Jake, mine. But not having... Is
this round Cadwell that you had the lap record?
Jake's got the lap record, yeah.
You had it for it as well.
I think that weekend we were sort of battling for it, and I did a 144.1 on
a 125
on a Aprilia RS 125. Jake did a 43.7 or something.
Bloody hell!
I ran on the last race. He ran on the grass, and I thought champion like that. That's the race win, and he hunted us down on the last lap and broke the lap record. So, but I tell you what, he's not having it as all his own way in the Moto2 class. Obviously, really struggling, like at the back of the field, crashing. I don't think he likes the bike that he's riding, and
first time in the class on a new bike. You know what I mean? He's
sure,
come
but going from winning BSB races and battling at the front to being like right at the back of Moto2's obviously not where he would have intended to have been.
Does that show the depth of field in Moto2, or but
it is? It's an unbelievably tight class, and same with Tyrone McKenzie. Tyrone McKenzie's sort of winning BSB races, and he did a full season last year, and he was the same, really, like right at the back of Moto2. Keenan Sofoglu winning World Supersport races. When he first went, he was initially good, but then he was towards the back of the field Moto2. I think it's such a competitive class. And
is there a big difference between the tracks? No, you know what I mean?
I don't know. I really don't know. You look at the likes of I generally don't know. I just think it's so competitive, and maybe I don't know if the British scene of superbike racing and riding production bikes, and then when you compare that to the Spanish and the Italian, and they're riding those type of bikes from a younger age and like a stiffer chassis. I really don't know what the answer is.
We'll have to get you on one, man. We'll have to get you on one.
But it is interesting when you see the Spanish and the Italian lower classes. So like the entry level classes are all proper racing bikes, prototype bikes. They've got they make a big thing of like Moto3, Moto2, and then they seem to do well in those classes later on in life, where in this country we've got a very, very strong production class with the Stock 600, Super Sport, Stock 1000, BSB, and then when you look at World Superbikes, which is all production bikes, it's absolutely dominated by the British. So I don't know, maybe it's just a different way of racing, but like I say, Jake definitely wouldn't have intended to be where he is. He definitely won't be happy where he is, and he's capable of so much more, and it's obviously just getting that confidence back to build on it, isn't it? That's it, yeah. And I mean, when the other guy rode his bike who'd been on the podium, he didn't do very well on it. So maybe I don't know I don't know enough about it to know like what the crack is with the different chassis and whatever. But whatever the case is, it's not working out for him at the moment, and he'll be hoping that certainly changes sometime soon. But I mean, back to your week. Have you been up to anything else other than being at Cadwell?
No, just trying to get things sorted. I've just been up and down the country, and it's just trying to get the little things sorted. Just getting bikes ready. Well, I'm off to the Enniskillen 100 road races this weekend. So obviously getting bikes prepped down with the Davies lads. So it's just, obviously with the budget with the Davies team, we've got a few big events lined up. So this one's obviously just a bit more track time, and it's the Enniskillen road race has only started off last year, and it's very much it's an up and coming club, and it's part of the road racing scene. It's actually joined the Irish Championship rounds now, and I'm hoping they're going to get a good turnout. The weather's looking fantastic for it. So we need to get people down there. Obviously, their social media stuff, you need to get them on Facebook and Twitter and give them a like, get some support in there. And obviously, there'll be plenty to be talking about on that side of things. In
terms of the entries, if they sort of release the entries, do we know who's going to be racing there?
The programmes are out. Obviously, the big two contenders who absolutely wiped the floor with everyone else last year was Derek McGee, who was unfortunately involved in a super twin crash at the practice session. I'm not sure, but he's tough as a pair of old boots, that lad. Like, I'm telling you, you know what I mean? You could bounce him off a cliff and he'd still get up and just could you do it a bit harder? You're a bit of a tart. But, and Adam McLean, he's obviously still recovering from injury from his crash at Tamragee. I think Sweeney's going to be there. Thomas Maxwell, who is, I think he's a New Zealand lad, he's going so strong.
Yeah.
James Chalk, I think he's there, and oh God, he's going to kill me for this. Darrell Anderson. Is Darrell Anderson? Darrell, if you're listening, I'm sorry, son. But no, he's there. There is a stronger and stronger depth of riders getting there. And I am going, obviously, on my own 600. I'm going with my sponsor, Boats on Wheel, Andy Brown. So we're just going over, enjoying that. Champion. And unfortunately, I was kindly offered earlier in the year a super twin ride just for that one race. Obviously, the Cowton bike that was just for the TT, and I'm obviously we're gonna see what happens with budget and see what the Counting family want to do for the rest of the year. But at the moment, my ride dropped out, and kindly Patch Racing, Davy Graham there, he was on the phone, and he's offered me a very stock SV650, which is going to be very good, you know, to get the laps in. And you know, I don't think the bike's obviously going to be quite up to the £50,000 million budget of a KMR Kawasaki bike, but it's no, I'm incredibly grateful for the opportunity to get on the Patch Racing SV650.
Get some laps in. Obviously, with it being a new circuit for you, those extra laps in practice and stuff will hopefully help you get up to speed and
definitely
learn the bits. And I presume riding the roads, there'll be loads of like little potholes and bumps and whatever that you need to sort of get accustomed to before racing.
Oh, definitely. Well, put it this way, I think I've bought a gum shield for this event. It's going to be the most fantastic spectating, because obviously Fermanagh itself was built on a bog.
Right.
Honestly, it was essentially built on a bog, so the actual ripple in the tarmac, not the actual surface grip, but it's obviously undulating. There's a big word for you, Chrissy. I thought you'd be impressed with that one. But
word of the podcast.
Word of the undulating. Oh, yes, undulating. But obviously, you know, the track's going up and down, and I think a big bike, you know, it's got a couple of big long straights where you would stretch the legs of a big bike, but it's so undulating. You really need to ride the bumps through, almost like a motocross track. So getting the track time with the other on this SV is going to be absolutely crucial, because unlike yourself and all of us, you know, we can go and pay for a track day and go learn a short circuit. But when it comes to road racing, you get one crack of this a year. So obviously, a massive shout out to the Patch Racing team for giving me this opportunity to get the much needed knowledge to progress forward.
And also, did you get to watch the World Superbike racing at the weekend?
Did I bollocks? I was too busy smiling, riding two strokes here. So this is why you're here.
I'll just catch you up on the results. It was good racing. Obviously, the World Superbike format, they have the 3 races. I didn't watch any of them live, but I quickly watched them on like the highlights on catch up, so I could at least bring you the results.
Good man.
The wet race on the Saturday was it was a good race. That one, there was quite a few crashes. It was, let us think, the wet race. I think I'm gonna have to get the results up. I remember Tom Sykes.
Oh yeah, you're getting bad as me, mate.
Johnny Ray won that one, and Tom Sykes was on the podium on the BMW. So it was good to see that.
Really? Have they actually got their big engine? Because obviously at the beginning of the year they were riding around on stock engines apparently. So are they starting to crack into the big engines? Do you think?
What's that? The BMW?
BMWs, yeah, because obviously the Sykes and obviously Hickman and all them. Obviously, Hickman had a huge problem with his Superbike engine. So it's a bit like if Hans and Fritz, you know, pulled their finger out and started giving them some super duper stuff.
I'm not sure how they're progressing. They weren't so sharp in the dry, but I suppose the wet's a little bit of a leveler. So yeah, I mean it was a good race. And like I say, there was a few offs. Then they have the sprint race on the Sunday morning. I'm trying to think. Bautista, I think, was about 6th in the wet. The sprint race,
6.
Yeah, the sprint race was brilliant.
Is that his first wet race or Bautista? Really?
I'm not
or
sure.
Not?
I can't remember. In the sprint race, Johnny Ray had a little crash, and he was skittling along the tarmac, and then he rolled onto his back, and his bike went over the top of him, went back onto the other 2 wheels, and he picked it up and carried on racing.
Never.
As he did like a full tumble turn, it was really good. But I think he finished about 6th or 7th in that one, and Bautista won that one, and I think it was Lowe's and Haslam that made the podium.
See, Lowe's is getting so much more consistent on that Yamaha now, isn't he?
Yeah. Did you see Van der Mark's crash in practice?
Holy
I really like Van der Mark, and he was obviously won the last race at Jerez, and he was coming on really strong. But yeah, that was
I'll tell you what Van der Mark doesn't like. Gravity. Jesus, that was but he landed straight on the rumble, man.
I know.
It was humongous.
He's bust his wrist,
just his wrist?
I think so, but he's straight in for surgery, and hopefully he'll be out soon. And then it was Bautista again who crashed on the main race, on like race 2. And then
what do you mean again? So you see, this is how out of tune I am. Sorry to all my listeners. We're supposed to be.
So he crashed it at Jerez as well.
Right. So what's his championship looking like?
Well, he was extending a massive lead, but it's now down to 16 points. Johnny Ray took the win. He was battling with, do you know the young Turk, Top Rack?
Yes, on the Kawasaki as well. He's
So
stepping up massively, isn't he?
Them two pissed off from everyone, and so it was Ray versus Top Rack. Ray took the win, Top Rack second, but like right behind him, and then there was a bit of a gap. Haslam third, so it was a Kawasaki podium.
And is that Haslam's first podium?
No, he's had quite a few
this year.
Yeah. He's doing. you don't.
I
watch World Superbikes.
I know I don't. That's why this is chasing the racing. So I'm with the majority that don't watch it. So I'm loving this, Chrissy. Just crack on, son.
I tell you what, they did mention on the old commentary. Do you know what do you think Bautista's bonuses from Ducati for a race win? Bear in mind how many races they have. What do you think his bonuses for a race win?
Oh yeah. Stamina Dark, a bonus on top of his wage. I reckon he probably get 20 grand a win.
They didn't say an exact figure, but I think they said it's between 50 and 75,000 euros a win.
Holy crap! Hold on,
no wonder he's smiling.
No wonder he's smiling. Jesus wept, man. Well, hold on,
he'll be earning some decent cheddar this year. Like,
well, you're not kidding. There's Josh Brooks thing. He's the only one in the British champion for this triple head champion. King of Brands bollocks thing. What
integral triple header?
Explain that quickly.
Basically, it's just six races off the bounce. I think if you win all 6, you get 50 grand or something.
75 grand, young'un.
I think
Bautista's mopping that up every weekend.
I know, but I guess for Ducati, they're a huge, obviously owned by Audi. They're a huge multi-billion pound.
What about Redden and Brooks? Do you reckon? Because at the end of the day, they're still pushing the Ducati brand.
Yeah, maybe on a bit of a bonus, but I don't. It definitely won't be 50 grand a race.
We need to get some flies on the wall, mate. All this technology, spy technology. We need to start slapping it around Paul Bird's motorhome and just go and find out what really goes on, eh, bye?
And that's the thing. I think that's all my World Super. The female competitor, do you know, the ex-world champion in the 300 class, Anna Carrasco?
Yes.
She won the 300 race.
Oh, good on her.
And I remember someone telling us the Super Sport race was great, but I'm trying to rack my brains for the result. I cannot remember who won it. But I seen Kevin Manfredi was 8th, which for a wild card entry, which was very good.
But wait. Morgan Freeman, I'll have to ring you back. You're live on the podcast. Don't swear. If you do swear, go on, do a little swear word. You wouldn't drink. You say you're a professional, right? I'll ring you back, Morgan Freeman. Cheers, mate.
Can I just ask who's Morgan Freeman?
Well, that was Morgan Freeman. He's actually the main sponsor of the Super Twin race at Enniskillen 100.
Oh right, okay.
There you go. He's obviously found out I'm there to try and get some money from him this weekend. He's trying to ring us up.
And just before we put the interview on, we'll put a thing out on the old Twitter for someone to draw a little caricature for me and Dom. Obviously, something bike racing related, something to do with me maybe teaching and you cutting trees, and we've had some fantastic fantastic entries. It's not a competition, but we've had some fantastic drawings that people have sent in.
So we've had loads.
Would you just like to list all the lovely people that have sent stuff in?
Oh no, we've got like Dickie Drummer, David Daisy. I can't even recognise my own handwriting here. So Holly Ann Downing and Polygon Racing, which is a mint tweet, that mind, isn't it? That's a mint tweet name, Polygon Racing. And Emma Sullivan's currently doing one for us, which is absolutely awesome. She's the girlfriend of Forrest Dunn. We'll have to get him on the show. We'll have to get him on the show. But no, thank you so much for them.
Appreciate all the people that have took the time to do that. It's really kind, and maybe we'll get some merchandise done. Or to be honest, I've had that.
There's no royalties, mind.
I've had that sticker on the back of my van chasing the race, and I quite fancy something big on either side. I might get one caricature of you with like a lovely man, and then one of me saying 3, 2, 1. So maybe.
Oh, we'll have to get it done.
I guess that's my catchphase. Unless, can you think of anything else for me?
I've no idea. I'll think of something, young'un. But hey, I tell you what. Speaking of counting down, do you want to introduce our guest?
Yeah, so for the guest this week, fantastic man altogether. He's a lovely man.
He's fantastic.
He's got some brilliant stories, and
mention his book, seriously. What's his book called?
So he's got an autobiography called A Light in the Darkness, and I think he's actually ran out of copies, but he'll be getting some more printed, and it is a fantastic read. His story is, if you made it into a movie,
You wouldn't
you
believe
wouldn't
it.
believe it's actually happened. You know,
There's so much depth.
yeah, and
So
it's,
much depth.
Yeah, some unbelievably tragic events that you couldn't even imagine, and and then some unbelievable highs that, you know, are just like quite incredible, to be honest. So I was really honoured that he wanted to come on the podcast, and although we didn't cover everything that we possibly could have, I think we get a good sort of
You get a feel. You get a feel for the character
man,
anyway.
Yeah, that's it. So without further ado, we get a bit of comedy at the end as well.
There's one joke we'll have to cancel, mate.
Without further ado, here's an interview with Mr. Alan Carter. So we're joined by former 250 Grand Prix winner and all-round nice guy, Mr. Alan Carter. How are you doing, Alan?
Yeah, good. Really good tonight, guys.
Good. Have you had a good week?
Oh, fabulous. I'm going for my second fuck this week. I'm fed up of looking for me first.
Right.
Sorry.
Our listeners, this is possibly the best guest we've had on, and he's already been on for 2 seconds. This is fantastic. Go on, Chrissy. This is your guest, and I'm learning a lot here. So you're gonna have to steer the way here, mate.
Yes.
Steer the way.
Do you know what, Alan? When obviously we set the podcast up, it was like a good few months ago, and we were having a chat about like potential guests, and out of all the sort of guests in the world of motorbike racing, you were straight away my pick to be on. Obviously, I've read your book, Light in the Darkness, and you being the same age as my dad. My dad's told us lots of stories about like. Obviously, when he was growing up, you were racing, and like when he was just leaving school, sort of 18, you were on the TV racing in Grand Prix, and like I guess he would kind of at that time he'd be like hero worshipping you. And having read your book, it obviously just an unbelievable life that you've had with you know the highest of highs and obviously the lowest of lows. Obviously, for those people that are listening to the podcast who maybe weren't watching racing back then, let's go back right to the start and just obviously got into racing through your father Malcolm, and he was sponsoring the Haslams back then, wasn't he?
Yeah, Mal sponsored the Aslams, and then my brother was 3.5 years older than me, and then he said to me, he says, you can have a go. He says, but if you're fucking crap, he says, you can forget it. But I had a shot anyway, and I seemed to do all right. I picked it up quite quick.
And obviously you mentioned your brother there, Kenny, who's obviously a world-class speedway rider, and obviously spent a lot of your youth sort of following him around. Did Kenny ride on tarmac as well, or was he just speedway?
Oh no, he was quick.
I was about to say he can obviously go around left turns, but what's he like on the right?
Oh, trust me, he was quick. I'll tell you what, he used to do everything to me. No, not sexually, like, but you know, sorry, but he stabbed me and branded me and fucking shot me with a gun and.
Good, yeah. And your dad sounded like a right character with you know, your very sort of eccentric pets, and like just tell the listeners what sort of pets that you had in the house.
Well, we had all sorts, really. I got home one day and he says to me, can you feed the monkeys? I says, we ain't got any monkeys. He says, we fucking have now. And I went in this barn and there were 2 fucking monkeys.
You're joking.
No.
What else did you have?
Well, he says, you need to get home, you and Kenny. I've got something for you to ride. So we were really excited, thinking we'd have a new bike, like a crosser or something. And it was a fucking American Buffalo.
Where on earth did your dad fetch a buffalo from?
No, there was this buffalo called Billy, and apparently he got rid of it, that they were going to put it down. And he says, I'll have it. So I got home, and there's this buffalo there. I've got a picture of my brother riding it.
Oh, my God. Like, I'm going to put something very blunt. Did your dad have, like, a gambling problem, and he just didn't tell you about it? And he says, right, I bet you a giraffe for your buffalo. And, like, he just came home with, like, mad cars and mad horses and mad women. That's class.
He was a very eccentric, wealthy guy, and he was crazy, honestly, but a fun guy and a great, fabulous coach and sponsor and mentor. I mean, he knew his stuff.
Yeah.
Oh, brilliant.
What do you know when you sort of cast your mind back to those sort of times growing up? What are your sort of fondest memories with your dad?
probably him spotting for me and watching me and teaching me the trade. He was a good racer himself. He was pretty handy. But I think one of the memories as well is every time he put his hand in his pocket, he had like $5,000, and I used to think, fucking hell, that's all right, isn't it? You know what I mean? I wouldn't mind a bit of that.
Yeah,
You're not kidding. You're not kidding.
So how old were you when you first started with the racing?
Well, I started practicing when I was about 14, 15 on TZs. That's just kind of how it panned out. We had like a big barn and a helicopter landing pad and stuff. And it was kind of weird. My mum died when I was 15 and she took her own life. And I was just a street rough and tough kid like my brother. And then I had to go and live with my dad in this sort of fucking extravagant lifestyle. It kind of changed overnight. So it was kind of weird, really. But my dad was just an amazing coach, mentor, the best sponsor I ever had, and good top guy.
Yeah. So you went from zipping around a farmyard, and then at what point did you and your dad just think, I tell you what, let's take this to the tarmac? At what age did you just? Because from 14 to 18, obviously, you've got a cracking story, about the GP race, and we'll get to that later on. But, that 14 to 18 mark, what did you get up to? Did you go chase British? Was it straight into that, or track days, or, how did it pan out?
Well, I suppose before that panned out, I was just like any 14, 15-year-old kid trying to have kiss a bird and have a feel of a tits or something.
Trying to, mate. I'm still trying to. There you are.
That's kind of how it went back in our day, and then my dad raced in the 60s and 70s, late 60s, early 70s, and then he sponsored my brother, who was a top motocross rider and become a speedway rider, and then he sponsored Ron and a lot of people, to be honest, and he just said, do you want to have a go? And I had a go, and I did have my first race ever at Cadwell when I was 16. I had to wait for my 16th birthday.
Right. And then back then, was it right that you weren't allowed to ride a 250 until you were 18 at British?
Well, in England, you could ride a 250 and 350 at 16.
Right, okay. So you got on...
You had to be 18 to have an FIM license. So when I went to the World Championships, you had to be 18. Nobody under 18 was allowed to race in the World Championships. That's how it was back in them days.
Right. Okay. So once you turned 18, you then got your ride in the World Championship. Where was round one?
South Africa.
South Africa. And how did that go?
Well, it didn't go too well, really. I mean, a few months before that, in October of '82, I raced at Donington, and it was a weird year, '82. I'll come back to South Africa, but in '82, what happened was, in the beginning of '82, I kind of transformed from a top 10 national rider to being England's number one in 6 months. All the top Grand Prix stars, they kind of thrashed me in March, April, but they were only doing one race every 2 or 3 weeks or a month off, and all this how Grand Prix is. And I was doing double headers every weekend. So come October, when they all came back, I not only did I beat all them, I beat the current new world champion as well. I beat him 3 times in one day at Donington.
Yeah.
Wow.
So then, obviously, going into the following season, you'd already been racing the people that you were going to be racing in the World Championships, and you'd already beaten them as well. Did that give you the confidence to know that you could do the business when it came to the World Championship races?
Well, I did, but there was a couple of factors that I never thought about. One, I actually thought it'd be a piece of piss, and I couldn't see how these people could live with me. But the different types of tracks, when you're racing in England at Cadwell and Mallory and Donington and these sort of places, when you go to places like South Africa and Spa and Monza and Suzuka, these people have got 5-10 years experience, and you don't, you turn up and you're doing your first lap and you don't know where the track goes and this and that. Remember, we didn't have iPads and PlayStations and all that sort of stuff.
So how old, sorry, just to remind everyone, the listeners, how old were you at this point?
I was 18.
18. You know what I mean? This is like, you know,
Obviously-
it's amazing. That is absolutely amazing. So you literally do the hardest tracks in the world at 18, and you're still running around trying to feel tits and kiss girls. You know, this is incredible. It makes Marquez look like a puff.
And then, so
yeah. I mean, to be honest, I had a good chance of winning round one in South Africa. I was 5th place with the leading group, and my chain snapped.
Right. Okay. And
So
then
I ground to an halt. You know, I was there. I was right there, and then the chain snapped, and that's the only time I ever had a broken chain in my whole racing career.
right.
Apparently, DID sent the wrong chain. We ended up with road bike chain instead of racing chain.
Right, okay. And then obviously the second round, French Grand Prix of '83, and you turned up, and I think qualifying went a bit pear-shaped for you, didn't it?
Yeah, Dunlop. I mean, I ended up being Dunlop's development rider, and obviously I was quick, so they was giving me all the good stuff. And in '83, they brought some new tyres out, and there was even the softest one was way too hard, and everybody was crashing. But also Yamaha sent some factory kits for round 2 because we all got blown away in round 1 in South Africa on the big long straight on the old track at Kailami, and mine, we got there a bit late for some reason, and we got what was left of this factory stuff, and my bike kept seizing up, and I think I had 2 crashes, and it was absolutely freezing. It was a bit like, remember Donington last year when we all got to Donington?
Yeah.
Remember how cold it was?
Yeah, freezing.
Oh man, it was like that. Honestly, I think on race day it snowed a bit in the morning.
Right, okay.
At Le Mans, so I think I was about 32nd or 33rd quickest. I was on the back of the group, but 1 row from the back.
Mm-hmm. And then, and going into that race, what was your sort of realistic ambition?
Well, I thought we were fucked. You know what I mean? I mean, I didn't think I'd even get in the top 10. It was kind of bizarre. I mean, you know, I just kind of got a good start, got my head down, got into the top 10, and passed 1, and 1 crashed, and I think Saron seized, and Sito Pons, who won 2 world titles, went straight on after turn 1 down that hill under the bridge where the Le Mans long track goes, and you know, then the world champion Jean-Louis Trenard was in front of me, and he lost the front end, and that put me into 2nd place. I didn't even know what position I was in. Honestly, I hadn't got a clue. I was just
that many people in front of you, it just becomes a blur.
Yeah, honestly, I can honestly say every race I've ever done, I know exactly where I am, what I'm doing, but that one I ain't got a clue. The only thing I knew, I was in the top 3. And
do you reckon, talking about, like, we try and get, like, you know, we talk about, you know, tips for rides and stuff, but do you reckon because you didn't know where you were in the race, do you really think that, do you reckon that actually improved your riding because you were more relaxed instead of thinking, oh my God, I'm winning, or I'm in 2nd or 3rd? Do you reckon that particular situation helped you?
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, I kind of went the first round, South Africa. I actually did expect to win. I really thought that these guys were too old, and I was too young and too. I kind of brought a new dimension to it because they was like old. When I say old, that most of them was 26 to 33. So 18, I was like a fucking 12-year-old, you know, British Talent Cup kid. But you know, I was a bit over exuberant and impatient. You know what? I think one of the greatest qualities about a race is you've got to be very patient, and it's not a quality that a racer has in abundance.
Yeah,
we're very impatient. We want it instantly, and it can hurt you. You know, I'm sure.
Yeah, no, there's plenty of examples of that all the time. But obviously, you got to the front, won the race, and at that time, you were the youngest person in history to win a Grand Prix. Obviously, it must have been like a massive news in the UK. And like, how did you take in all the immediate fame and the you know, the TV interviews, and like, you know, for people in our days, it's the equivalent of someone turning up for like a Moto2 race, qualifying on the back row of the grid, and then winning on a track that they've never been to. It's impossible, really, you know, even think that actually happened. But I mean, how did you sort of deal with all the do you know what I'm saying? Like all the applause and all, whatever.
It's kind of weird, because the one thing that I always thrived on, we've all got something that give you know, to me, you've got to have a burning desire. This is what makes you tick. I mean, I ask Ryan this all the time. What makes you tick? You know what I mean? And for me, it was the fame. I just had this drive and ambition, and the fame. You know what I mean? That's what made me tick, and that's what really fired me up. And so coming back to all that, it was just fabulous. I mean, my brother was becoming one of England's number one. He was 3.5 years older than me. So by the time I won that, he was England's number one. And I think the captain of England Speedway, and double British champion and a world champion by then, Pez world champion. So, you know, he set a high bar, and I could see all this, and I wanted it as well.
It must have been an incredible time, you know, with you. Like at that time, you know, you winning a Grand Prix and Kenny doing the business on the Speedway. You must have, like, between the two of you, you must have had a fantastic. That must be a fantastic time of your life that you remember.
Honestly, it was unbelievable. I mean, I wish. I mean, one of the nicest guys I ever met was Barry Sheen. Sheen was just such a fabulous guy, and I wish I would have spent more time with him and learnt more from him. But it was difficult, because once you'd had such an amazing result, you really thought you'd arrived. And I can see how, you know, people now, you know, you can have a good meeting and think you're there, but, you know, you've always got to keep you grounded and keep focused, because, you know, it can be very, very unforgiving. You know, racing bikes have, you know what I mean? You've got to just, you know, you have a super high level of concentration and belief, and just you've got to be a really shrewd and smart cookie. I'm sure you're finding that yourself.
Yeah, sure. And obviously for the rest of that season, how would you just describe? How would you sort of commentate on yourself for the rest of the season?
Well, it was fucking wank, wasn't it? I mean, I just crashed my brains out. I mean, my dad pushed me, and
do you think do you think the sort of the early success maybe put yourself under a bit too much pressure for the rest of the year?
I don't think so. I just was a bit impatient. I mean, I qualified 5th at Assen. I pulled in the front two on the first lap, and I thought I'm going to win this easy, and I crashed at the chicane. And I pulled 50 yards. I took so much out the brakes on him, it was ridiculous. And on two, you know, ex-Grand Prix winners, and you know, it's just I think, you know, just having the right. It's like mixing a cake, innit? You've just got to have that right gel, and you've just got to have the right ingredients of everything. And I think maybe my dad pushed me a little bit too much, and I was a little bit impatient. You know, I should have just let things come to me. I think in the 90s, I had a much better head on myself than, you know, 18. I was a bit, you know, gun-ho, which I don't know.
And do you know when you said your sort of main driver for success was to be famous? At this sort of time, it like in obviously within the racing circles in the UK, you would be, you know, very famous, very well known. What was it like in terms of like to the, you know, in your local town, etc.? Were you well known?
Oh, it's fabulous. I mean, you know, back in the sort of early 80s, both Kenny Roberts and Agostini both asked me to race for them. I mean, how many people can say that? And I turned Agostini down, which is one of my worst and baddest things, you know, mistakes I made. But, you know, we all make mistakes and think this is going to be a better career path. But no, it was brilliant, honestly. It was just amazing. I can't even tell you how when I coach and help Ryan, how much I tell him that it's important to speak well, look $1 million, ride with, you know, such skill and style. You know, you've got to be the whole package, and it's not easy. You know, you kids are riding some awesome pieces of kit now, but that's what makes you tick. For me, it was the fame. What about yourself, Chrissy?
Come on, it's a fame. Admit it.
No, that it's a proper good question.
That's a brilliant question,
and it's one that I've maybe not really thought of. I think for me, the sort of the feeling of winning, and the feeling of winning it for me is kind of like a drug, and because I've had it before, it's what I crave more than anything else in the world, and it's what I work towards every day. It's what I think about, and I probably in a funny sort of way, I kind of see my racing as a little bit of as an identity. Like I'm the lad that races the motorbike, and I feel like without that, I wouldn't be. I feel like I would sort of lose my identity a little bit, and obviously whatever you do, you want to be successful. So I guess it's the sort of the feeling of winning and the feeling of success that sort of drives me. What about you, Dom?
I've got nothing. This is so deep for me. This is a bit heavy for a Tuesday afternoon. This is bloody hell. It's absolutely mental. But it's such an honest answer that you gave. You know what I mean? Like when it's to people, at the end of the day, people call me this, but people think you're full of bullshit. But you really aren't. This is the first conversation I've ever had with you, and you're wearing your heart on your sleeve, and it's great. Because there are a lot of riders out there that are just in it for the fame and the money, but it's such it's refreshing that you're giving such honest answers. But I feel like we can ask you anything. But what's your biggest regret? That's my next question. Go on. What's your biggest regret? Was it the Agostini moment? Throughout your whole career, just cycles, what was your biggest regret?
I don't know. I mean, I got good advice from everybody. I mean, my Grand Prix mechanic said to me, he said, if I could stay on the fucking bike as long as the women, we'd be laughing. We'd win the world title. He said we'd win the world title every year.
And
anyway,
if you had your time again, you know what I mean? If you could look back at your 18-year-old self or your 20-year-old self or whatever, or a particular moment, what would that particular moment be? And what would you say to yourself in that one outstanding moment that you think this is a do or die moment in my career? And what was it? Was it a moment of, don't get me wrong, it could be a positive moment that you think, glad I did that. Or have you got a moment in your career that you think, what an idiot I've been? Which was your turning point?
I wouldn't change anything. I mean,
right.
we're all where we are at that time. I can see when I work with young kids now, I can see myself in them, and there's an old saying, isn't there, that you can take an horse to the trough, but you can't make it drink.
That's it,
what people do is they listen, and they're very tentative and listening. And like I've always said to the guys, I hope you need to be like a big sea sponge and absorb all this information and don't waste my fucking time, because I'm not an idiot. And to me, it's being humble. I mean, one of the nicest guys I like in racing is Keith Farmer. I think he's a very humble guy. He's a 4 times British champion. He's got amazing style. On the 600 Super Sport, he was phenomenal on Appleyard's bike. I like watching him. I like watching a lot of people, but going back to the question, you can't change anything, can you? Probably be a little bit more patient, a little bit better management. But at the end of the day, I spoke to Jon Eckerol, the 350 world champion, 1980, and I was having a chat with him, and I was being a little bit bitter and a little bit negative. And he said to me, "Look," he says, "you could have been a fucking painter, you could have been a decorator, you could have been a fucking dog food maker, you were a racer in the Grand Prix. You were there, you were part of it." And he kind of put a different perspective on it, because
people beg for those chances, don't they?
Yeah, and it didn't quite pan out, but some of the major decisions were made by my father, and I was just a kid, and I was a very, probably a really immature kid, insecure, immature. bit of a class joker, but I still am. I like that. You know what I mean? What's the point? I mean,
you're a character, and that's what the sport lacks now. You know, it really does lack characters, and it's a bit like. Well, that leads me on to my next question. What is the game totally different now? Like, you know, when you flick on the the telly now, do you really? How much do you think's changed? Is it changed in a good fashion or in a negative? Because when you hear stories like Chris Palmer and all you lads going out and the Barry Sheen days, all going out getting a drink in them and going out and chatting up women, and they seem like the glory days to me. But now you flick on the telly and everyone's got like Chrissy here, gelling their hair and smiling with bleached teeth, and they've probably got their arseholes waxed, but it just seems totally different. It's a bit like. Do you think it's changed that much in a good way or a bad way?
Well, I don't know about having your arsehole waxed, but I'll tell you what I did today. I went out this morning to get a tyre fixed. I ended up having a phone battery. Then I got my tyre fixed, and then I ended up in a Turkish barber's. And he said, "You've got hairy nostrils." I said, "Have I?" He says, "Yeah." He said, "You need Turkish shave." And anyway, sit down. So I sat down, and he shoved these fucking cotton buds up my nose with this gel stuff on. And I thought, what the fuck's he doing? I was I've only come for a fucking haircut. And next minute, he pulled it out. Oh, you bastard, that hurt. I'll tell you. Anyway, I just thought I'd tell you that one. So my life's a bit eccentric. I never know what's going to happen. But yeah, what's changed, in my opinion, is the superstardom, right? To me, you guys tell too much on your social medias, don't have enough secrets, and
that's interesting.
Say, for example, if I went testing at Cadbull, yeah. So we're racing at Knockhill this weekend. So what I would have done last week, I'd have gone to Knockhill and I'd have got myself in 100 laps, and I wouldn't have told anybody, and there might have been one or two of my competitors there, and we're all being a bit crafty and coy. But people go on the social media and say, "Oh yeah, I've just been to Knockhill and I did this and I did that," and I think, well, why did they do that? And they have to thank the granny and the dog and the grandma and the girlfriend, and I don't know. It just seems weird.
Almost now.
Do you get what I mean?
Yeah, I totally get what you mean. Because obviously, I've been brought up on a saying of keep your powder dry. It's a bit like don't be bragging about what you've done, kind of thing. You know what I mean? But the social media game's changed now, and I think sponsors want that to like go around and brag. Oh, look what this is happening. But I agree with you, because I think, for example, there's a great example. Ian Hutchinson, right? He hasn't said this year. Don't get me wrong. He had a big near miss at the TT this year, but he was going out under the radar, and he was banging in track time, laps, testing, and no one knew anything of him. Now, I think Hutchie would have been really put a stamp on it this year if he didn't have his unfortunate slip off on the 11th. But like you say, he just hasn't said boo to a goose or told no one what he's doing. And then if he came up and got a result, that would have been more of an outstanding note than bragging about it pre-season.
Well, he didn't get past me, this sneaky bastard. I saw him at Alton Park.
There we go, then. You would have been putting it on your social media. There you are.
Nobody gets past me, Chrissy. If anybody does anything good on a track, in 2017, we was the underdogs, yeah? And I used to watch all them top guys, Jones, Neve, Stanley, Gilbert, every single one. And every time I saw them do something really good, I relayed that back to Ryan. And not only did I relate back to him, I took him to the corner and showed him exactly what they did, so he could mirror image what they were doing to get up to their speed and level. And then what we needed to do was surpass that. So I'm very analytical. I watch, every class.
And well, I tell you what, Alan, because I want to ask you a lot about, like, more in depth about sort of the work that you've been doing over the last few years and sort of working with Ryan. But just before we get on to that, just a few more questions on back to your racing.
Okay.
And you could literally write a book, and you have written a book. And
one of the things I wanted to ask you about was you rode for Kenny Roberts, didn't you?
Mm.
Yeah.
Wow.
What was he like to have as a team boss?
was an arrogant prick, really. I mean, don't get me wrong, he was fucking a fast arrogant. I think you need that level of arrogance, but
was there not one occasion? I'm not sure if it was with you, but was there not one occasion where he had some riders and they were complaining about something, so he jumped on the bike and was faster than both of his riders or something?
Yeah, he did. I mean, what we did is basically our bikes were shit. I mean, don't get me wrong, we had the best paint jobs. They looked good, but they were slow. So we got to Paul Ricard, the French Grand Prix. Now, this is the defence of my French Grand Prix, so I want to win it again. But by that time, Roberts was really quite a big bully to Wayne. He never bothered me because whatever he said to me, he was just like, fucking hell, he's just an idiot. You know what I mean? I mean, my dad's Mal Carter and, he could rip you a new arsehole every day. But so Roberts used to give Rainey a lot of jip, not me, but he turned up at Paul Ricard because we'd complained about the bikes being shit. And he actually went out and went quicker than both me and Wayne. And then it kind of, it gave us a kick up the arse, and we went out and we went quicker than Kenny. And I think I qualified 5th, and I got a really bad start, and I got into about 6th place. I'd come from about 15th, and I just caught Wayne, and the crankshaft broke, and I was out. So it was just one of them things. But now Roberts, I mean, he's a character. He's hard as nails, fabulous racer. But too much favouritism for Wayne and not for me. But that's just the way it was. It was an American team.
What was Wayne Rainey like to have as a teammate? Did you like him?
He was all right. I mean, it's a bit boring. He was all right. He's a quiet kid, wasn't he? You know what I mean? I never heard of him. I didn't give a fuck who he was. I was racing. I was racing people like Saron and Lovato, world champions. I mean, this kid turned up with blonde hair, and I didn't know who he was, and he probably didn't know I was. I didn't really give a fuck. I've been racing 250s for 3 years. I was number 12 in the world at my first attempt. One youngest ever Grand Prix winner. So he didn't make. I didn't really give two shits about him or whatever. I was focused on my stuff.
And do you know of all like the sort of Mackenzie, McLeod, and Watts, Tinker, and Patrickson, all of those. Who would you sort of pick out as being your strongest competitor from
biggest rival?
Your biggest rival.
Wow. I would say the best 3 really good riders would be Andy Watts, Steve Chambers, probably Kevin Mitchell was a quick kid as well.
And obviously a couple of years ago you got the chance to get back out on the bikes, for the Pro-Am racing.
Yeah.
So a little bit of racing back at BSB. How did you find putting the leathers back on and getting back out up to speed?
I don't know about up to speed. I fucking shit myself, I think.
Did you enjoy the experience though?
No. Did I? I mean, I went to Knock Hill in 1982, smashed the track record, won the race, and then I turned up there 2000 and whatever it was, 17. That's 25-year gap. The Scottish team have been practising there. You got Leon Haslam, Ron Haslam, and Mackenzie taking piss out of me. And I haven't been there for 25 years. I qualified 8th and finished 6th. I thought I did really well.
Wow.
Sorry,
wow. 25 years.
Yeah.
Hey.
And Mackenzie does track days there week in, week out. And I haven't been for 25 years and got myself a 6th place.
Give that man the trophy. Engrave it now. There we are. Brilliant. Absolutely brilliant.
I mean, there was only one race. I mean, Cadwell Park, I qualified. Mackenzie said, "Oh, you're Red Hot favourite." I didn't have the time or the finances to go on track days or do anything, so I turned up blind to Cadwell and I qualified 13th. And I was absolutely shitting it. And my mate said, "Follow me, come on, I'll help you." That was Graham Mitchell. And after a lap and a half, he was too slow. So I passed him. And then I was still 13th, and I ended up in second place. And then I came up the mountain and got a neutral, and I dropped back to 5th. And the second race, I got 4th place, and I was only 2 seconds behind that. I was coming out of barn, and they was going over the finish line. So I think, and that was 15 years since I've been to. It was 15 years since I've been to Cabwell, and 5 years since I'd actually rode a motorbike. So I thought I did really well, but you know, what can you do? I mean, people like Charlie Corner, you know, Charlie's a lovely guy and he rides bikes all the time, and that Pete Jennings and other people, they're just a bit more, you know, they're on bikes a bit more than what I was. So I thought I did really well, but I did feel nervous.
Good. And
This guy's my hero now. You're my hero, mate. You really are.
when I was sending Dom some notes for today and like stuff we're going to talk about, I sent him the video of the Silverstone Grand Prix back in 1985, where you crashed out of second place, and then when the marshals came to help you, you weren't too happy. Did you hear that, Alan?
Yeah. Can you hear me?
Yes, technical issue.
No, I don't know what happened there. No, what happened was the year before, in 1985, I led the Grand Prix from start to the 13th lap, yeah? I'm on an RS250 that did 228 kilometres. Freddie Spencer's did 249. His bike was 21 kilometres faster than mine. Yeah. And I think I was leading the Grand Prix by about 13 seconds or 11 seconds. Can you imagine leading a MotoGP by 11 seconds? I was gone.
Good lad.
And I crashed. I took 2 rows of barriers out. I lost my foot peg, half my brake lever. I had to put my foot on the exhaust pipe. My handlebars were bent. Shit all over me. And got back on. I was 7th. And then the following year, I raced the Cobas, and about 3 laps into the race, my rev counter stuck on 7,000, and it was just stuck. And so, you know, you're changing gear like with just the noise of the engine and not the rev counter. It's just a little bit difficult. You know, you know what it's like. I mean, it's nice when you just look at that rev counter and bang, 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 and it gone. And you know, I was
drop the ball and also concentrate.
I was determined to win, honestly, and my mate Dominic Saron was on the factory Honda, and he had about a second and a half on me on the last lap, and I thought I'm just gonna fucking hang in there and try and beat him and do him over the finish line. I thought I'll just won't even shut off. I'll just fucking crash, but as long as I'm holding the handlebars when I come under him, I'll be all right. You know, I just had this delusional fucking ideas, and I high-sided it, and I broke the clutch lever. And I tried to wedge it back in. Do you know, like when you break your clutch lever on a motocross bike and you just try and wedge it in a bit to use it once to get going?
Yeah.
I did that, and this guy, Marshall, knocked my arm and it fell out again. And it just, I went to give him a big haymaker, you know what I mean? But no, it wasn't something that I normally do.
I'll tell you, I've seen weaker punches in the UFC, man. That was a beautiful connection in a pair of levers. That was just like bang. I'll tell you what, he was a big, hard lad, mind. He stood there and took it.
He took it on the chin, aye.
He took it properly. He didn't argue after that, though, did he? I think he just let you go.
I just didn't quite connect with him, else he'd have gone down like a fucking plumber's tool bag.
And like I alluded to earlier, obviously, over 2 years you've had an integral role with Ryan Vickers, who's, you know, one of the strongest young lads coming through at the moment. First of all, Vickers crashed at the last round at Brands and knocked himself out. How's he getting on?
Well, to be honest, he's struggling a little bit. Ryan's had a serious bang on the head, and he's just trying to recover from a bleed on the brain. And although he's
Jesus,
it's not. He's you know, he's still quite tired and sleeping a lot. And you know, I love him to bits, like my own son. We've had a great 2 years. We won the British title, won a race in the first year against Jones and all them guys, Neves and Stanley Gilbert, Oliver, all them. I mean, fucking, that's some achievement.
Yeah.
It was. I mean, you like yourself, Chrissy. You were flying in 2017 on Ruster's Mission Racing bike. I watched. You came to my eye at Cabwell.
Uh-huh.
Yeah, you were on it, man.
Yeah.
So Ryan's just people say, oh well, you shouldn't be doing this and you shouldn't be doing that, but you got to remember, sometimes in racing, it's what are the options? Yeah. It's not like, if we've got £1 million or £10 million, we can pick our career path, can't we?
Yeah.
We can go stock 6, we can go super sport, we can skip super sport and go stock 1000, we can go and do, CV in Spain, we can do this, that. But, sometimes when the funds are low and it's difficult, you kind of got to go with where the openings come. And, something came along with the RAF and Lee and that just seemed to gel together, and
that was the best offer on the table.
Yeah, and
a wise move to go for it. He's really stood out. He really has stood out, and unfortunately, he's it's the sport bites back. Sorry, and it's just caught him a little bit too much at the moment, hasn't it? So it's
he's not. I mean, everybody said he will get hurt and blah blah blah, but it's actually not the power that's catching him out. There's a little bit of technique that's different. Ryan is an amazing super stock and super sport rider. He's got a high tempo with good exit speed, gets on the gas like the Americans very early, very hard. And, the way you ride these super bikes with 230-ish horsepower is a bit different. And, he's just got to suss out a few things, that's all. But unfortunately, it was a bad crash. And the only thing, when Taron went down there as well, it just goes to show you, even a guy with a lot more experience than Ryan did an identical accident. He just clipped that bump going with, a lot of sort of brake on, a bit of angle, and the front just collapsed immediately. And the air fence, when the bikes went in there and hit it, it took it out the way, and then the rider went in and hit the tyre wall.
Right.
Well, on a more positive note, obviously, like you say, you've had some real good success with Ryan, and taking him from CB 500s back in 2016 to then going straight into BSB, winning a race in your first season in Superstock 600, and then winning the championship in a very dominant fashion last year, and then obviously getting up to Superbikes. How have you enjoyed your role? As you were saying about like sort of analysing other riders and like pointing out, I guess like sort of spotting rider coach, is that kind of what you would call yourself?
Yeah, I mean, I'm to be honest, a really good motivator. I mean, there's a cross between being very aggressive and very calm, and there's time to attack and time to be calm, and you need lots of things in your repertoire of skills to go quick. And I've tried to, pass that on to Ryan and McGreevy and a few other people. I've always had an open sort of house and caravan to help people, whoever they are. I mean, I just like sharing my information, and, I'm kind of in awe of the young kids and the speed of the bikes. Yeah, your suspension's miles better, but the speeds you're doing are phenomenal. So, a lot of people go, oh yeah, when the 2-strokes were around, or the 500s, blah blah blah, it was better. But that you guys are not hanging about. There's all of you, some serious talent. You've only got to look at Olsen and people like Cooper, who you race against, and Billy and all them. I mean, there's no mugs up there. If you want to be on that rostrum, Chrissy, you've got to be on your A game.
Yeah, sure. Do you know if a little bit of a weird question for you, but if you were sort of in charge of BSB, so like say take Stuart Higgs's role, is there anything that you'd be doing differently, like right now?
Well, it's a difficult one, and it really, I can't really comment on that.
Fair enough. And
I'd I'd like to, but you know what I mean. I mean, there's different things with Stuart. Stuart's, he's, a lot of people say things about him, or he's under a lot of pressure. Probably, I don't really know. I mean, I'd like to think. I don't know what to think about that. I need to have a think about that. And
Yeah,
maybe,
I was just sort of going along the lines of like the sort of structure of the BSB Championship and like classes and stuff. Do you feel like there's a good? Do you feel like the BSB provides a good stepping stone to sort of World Championship racing? And is there any sort of difference in the sort of classes, etc., that you would change?
Well, I think when you look at the way the BSB's run, that it could possibly become one of the biggest, if not the biggest, championship in the world. They've only got to pump in a lot of money in their sponsorship and prize money and things like that. Thing they do, this King of Brands, and I mean, the coverage is TV and everything, and there's so many aspects of it. I mean, there's good things and bad things, but I mean, I didn't agree with that. This thing where you slow down for that rider lap and all that. I thought that was a bit stupid, but
the long penalty.
Yeah, I mean, all that, spending all that money on that tarmac round Druids. I mean, fucking hell, you may as well just. Why don't you just give somebody a 2-second penalty off the start line? You can't make, even if you jump the start, you can't make 2 seconds.
No.
But if you've got a team who's invested 100,000 and your race is wrecked because of that moment, I mean, look, your adrenaline's pumping, you're on that line, you want to get a great start, bang, you know what I mean? It's easy to just not get that timing right. So I just think as well, imagine if you were going around that penalty bit round Druids and somebody came in there hot and lost the front end and took you out as well, it could be quite dangerous.
Yeah, sure. And for the BSB at the moment, in the Superbike Championship and in the Super Sport Championship, who's your pick for the respective championships?
I think Brooks will win the Superbikes.
Yep.
I think when he's on fire, he's untouchable. At Alton Park, I don't think there was anybody in the world could beat him. I watched him every lap. That Richard Cooper in the Stock Thou, which you race against, is very, very difficult. And Olsen, them two stand out to me.
Mm.
I can't see anybody beating Jack.
No.
Jack Kennedy.
Yeah.
Yeah. Do you not think Seeley can do it?
No, I think he's done fabulous, but I think Jack will walk it, to be honest with you. And I think that having Seeley in there is just giving him that fire in the belly that he needs, because obviously they don't seem to like each other.
Yeah, fair enough.
And then my dark horse for stock 600's got to be that Richardson. Clifford's going fantastic, to be honest.
Yeah.
He's lost a lot of weight. He's put a lot of dedication in. You can see that he really wants it. But if I'm honest, I can't see. I think my man will win the stock 6, but he's got to be very smart and just do what he needs to do. I mean, he did perfect that at Brands. Corey, I put him under instructions that all he had to do was beat Richardson and Clifford.
Yeah.
He didn't need to beat McGlinchey, and he didn't need to beat him. There was too much of a gamble in that wet. I mean, it was a really wet race. So what about yourself? Who's your sort of, you guys, both of you, what's you?
Yeah, I would agree with you on all of those, really. I haven't really followed Stock 600 this year, but I would certainly agree with Brooks and with Jack Kennedy. I think it's between Kennedy and Seeley, but I think Kennedy is the better rider out of those two. Have you been catching up with the British Talent Cup?
I haven't really. Last year I watched a lot of it and really enjoyed it, but this year I've just
haven't had time.
I haven't. No, I've just not. I haven't followed it.
And I was also, I see on like sort of social media and stuff that you do gardening, don't you? You've got a gardening business.
I do. I'm a professional gardener.
Good man. How's that going?
Well, we've got the van sign written. We everything's looking good. You want to see my van? I've got a little sign on the left on the back of the van I've got a little arrow on the left, and a little arrow on the right. And when I'm coming down the motorway, the little arrow on the left says piss takers, and on the right it says overtakers.
Okay, good.
I tell all the customers.
Send us a picture of your van and I'll stick it on our Twitter page.
We look after the customers. We tell them all. We'll VAT them at the end of the business day. That's vanish after trading.
Oh, good.
Class fan.
Do you know Dom chops down trees for a living?
No, brilliant.
So when you're doing a garden, if you've ever got a massive tree, give our Dom a bell and he'll be down with his chainsaw.
No problems. Honestly, I've got a chainsaw. We tell all the customers if the garden's not fucked, it will be.
Class, man. Class.
I tell you what, Alan, something just jumped into my head. Did you ever do the TT or Northwest or anything?
Yeah. McGuinness said to me, he says, "Why did you not write about the Northwest in your book?" I said, it wasn't really a fucking track, was it? Just squirted down there, down to that roundabout, fucking flat out down there into Metropole and back up that front. I raced the 1994 Ducati. I raced a Ducati Super Mono in the single class. The top two men was Jim Moody and Mike Edwards. And the first practice, I came out of York Corner and I missed the gear and it over-revved and popped the exhaust off the header. The second one got cancelled because of rain. And then the third practice, I don't know where I qualified. I don't know. I can't remember. I didn't get many laps in anyway. But how I actually did it was I got a phone call from Billy Nutt. Have you heard of Billy?
Oh, aye.
Well, Billy says, "I'll give you $2,500 if you come." So I said, "I'll be there. Don't worry, Billy. Just make sure you've got the cash." And Mike Edwards said to me a couple of months ago, he said he never offered me $2,500. I said, "I know." I put my arm around him. I said, "Bless you." I said, "They wanted a real star."
Oh, you're joking, you heathen, yeah.
Well, I did win it.
There we are.
Top man. Well, Alan, thanks. I really appreciate you coming on the podcast. Now, I've properly enjoyed
That's been
catching
mint.
up with you.
Absolutely mint.
I tell you what, have you got any good jokes before you go?
Don't get him going again.
Well, did you hear about the guy in The Sun who had 5 penises?
No.
His fucking underpants fitted him like a glove.
Oh, wait, Chrissy.
Right.
What did Ken Dodd? Have you heard of him?
Yeah.
What did Ken Dodd call his 2 new Diddy men? Did he pay and did he fuck?
Oh, mint, man.
Thanks very much, Alan.
Thank you so much, Alan, mate. Thank you so much.
See you guys. Bye.
Catch you soon. Cheers, mate. Bye-bye.
Bye.
So big thanks to Alan for coming on the podcast. And,
What a character, man. I think, Chrissy, when you see the light and you want to get rid of me, that's the replacement right there, I'm telling you. What an absolute nutter. He's fantastic. But like you say, what a life he's had.
I know. He doesn't beat around the bush, and
I bet he does. Hold on, I bet he does.
He very much says it how it is, and I think that's quite rare in these days. And
it is mind, isn't it? I think he really does wear that. Wear his heart on his sleeve, and that's an expression that gets used too much. But he really does. He really does. Very, very open book, shall we say?
That's it. But I tell you what, this has turned into quite a long episode because obviously we've done our pre-bit. The interview's a long one, and then obviously. We'll be running out of time a little bit.
Running out of TikTok, but so come on, tidy up the show here, Chrissy. What's your plans? You're a busy lad.
So I've got next round of the British Superbikes this weekend coming. Knockhill. Really looking forward to it. It's kind of my home round, even though it's like 3 hours away. But it's the closest track that I get to in the British Superbike calendar. So I'm proper looking forward to that. We had a test a couple of weeks ago and got a good feel for the track, and the bike got it set up nicely. So yeah, really looking forward to that. I've got a supporters bus going up, so got to tie a few loose ends with that tomorrow, but you know, we've got plenty of people coming up to support, so that should be good. And rest of the week, just get myself sorted, get to the gym in the morning. And
Good lad. Keep the pecker up, young'un. Keep the pecker up.
I tell you what, Dom, you're looking a bit slim yourself. What's happening?
I've been hanging around with some really questionable people, and it's obviously that kind of boosted up the system. But no, it's a case of I just need to trim the weight for the little classic bikes, and obviously the future plans coming up. But you know how it is. But but before we tidy up the show, I've got to shout out massive thank you to Emily Drysdale, one of our friends, who's she's been helping me out.
Lovely lady.
She's a lovely lady. No, she's been helping me out with a bit of paperwork and obviously getting the Bomb Squad stuff sorted as well. So thank you very much for her time. While I was away racing, she was sorting out a few of my envelopes and getting a few things sorted. So
nice.
God love you, Emily. Thank you so much.
I would just like to thank Ian Stanton for. I let him know that I was going to be interviewing Alan a while ago, and he dropped some good sort of leading questions and sort of things that sort of helped me do the interview. So,
yeah, spot on.
Thanks to Ian. And
obviously thanks to our sponsor,
BR8. Huge thanks to the sponsor. We'll have to take you up on the offer to come along, and
I definitely am. I definitely.
And, we'll get to. I think they race at like Wilton Mill, Rower, all those sort of tracks, don't they?
We'll get there, Chrissy. We'll get the mugs handed out.
Rower's not too far. That's just across the country.
Cumbria.
Have you been there before?
I went on a Supermoto. It was absolutely mental.
It's a cool little track, like. And so when do you head over to, is it Enniskillen?
Enniskillen. Obviously, please check them out on Instagram and Twitter and Facebook. Like every club, and especially in road racing, you know, you need to keep these things going. Show your support. Please give them a like, even if you don't care. Give them a like, give them a follow, and get them numbers up, because we're all shallow at heart and we need the numbers.
Spot on. Well, thanks again to everyone who's been retweeting the podcast and telling friends and spreading the word. We're getting a good sort of growth on the sort of downloads each week, and it's good feedback for me and Dom. So yeah, really pleased with that. And also to everyone that's been going on to iTunes and leaving a positive review. Obviously, you're aiming for like a 5-star review, so thanks to everyone who's kindly given us a 5-star review and left a little comment, because it really is nice to read through. And
without your support, this wouldn't keep going, because let's be it, if it crashed and burned after the first 2 episodes, we weren't going to keep going. So obviously your support is keeping us going, so it's grand, man.
Well, without further ado, thanks very much, and best of luck at Enniskillen, Dom, and
best of luck at Knockhill.
That's it.
Go and get that podium, son.
Do you reckon you'll be able to do a podcast next week? You got some free time?
Bah. Yes.
I'm sure we'll squeeze one in at some point.
We'll fit one in some point, mate.
Spot on. Excellent. Thanks very much, and goodbye.
Let's hope this gadget works. Bye.
Yes.